How's it going, everybody? You got the Razman coming at you here with another video. Today I joined James DVD Collector 1974 and Ian Forgerball in my debut for Top 5 Fridays. I want to thank those two guys for encouraging me to do this, and especially since I can't buy a lot right now, it'll be a great way to do a consistent series here on the channel along with Netflix Pick of the Week that will continue next week after the holiday craziness. So looking forward to it. So today is Top 5 Trilogies on the Razman's Reality. Alrighty, so top 5 trilogies. Now, you would think, oh, this is going to be a snap to do, easiest thing in the world to do, but then you think, oh, well, there's a Toy Story films, but there's going to be a fourth Toy Story. There's the Pirates of the Caribbean films, but there's a fourth Pirates of the Caribbean that, even though it has new characters in it, it still has the two main lead characters in the fourth film, so that's not a trilogy anymore. Then you think, oh, Indiana Jones. Well, there's the Crystal Skull. Let's not waste time on the Crystal Skull, shall we? Then you think, oh, Jurassic Park. But now there's Jurassic World, which is going to be a whole different set of stories, yes, but it's still a part of things. So in the end, this wasn't as easy to do as I originally thought it was going to be, but nonetheless, here we go. And as Ian and James always point out, with these lists, these are our favorites. These are not, cinematic greatest things ever. So don't get all twisted and tied up if your choices aren't in here. If your choices aren't in here, do a video on your own and tell us why your choices should be in here. These are just all about personal preferences. So at number 5 is actually one that I was really surprised that it was going to be this low. But when I sat down and thought about proper trilogies, I'm like, yeah, when it comes to rewatchability and enjoyability, this has to be this low. And I'm just still in shock about it, but it is. The Nolan Batverse, of course, Batman Begins. The Dark Knight. And The Dark Knight Rises. Yes, I know that The Dark Knight Rises is my only steelbook. I missed out on the Best Buy steelbooks I already had of that later came with the first two. I already had the first two. I just couldn't pass up having a steelbook for the third one. Steelbooks are my vice. If those Best Buy steelbooks of the first two ever go dirt cheap again, I will rebuy them so that collection will match up. Until then, leave me alone. But as much as I love Batman, I think the reason that this trilogy ended up being so low on the list was a very simple reason, which I will now re-show the trilogy again and explain why. The bottom line for me is that this should have just been Batman Year One. This should have just been The Long Halloween. And this, of course, should have been arguably the greatest graphic novel of all time, The Dark Knight Returns. Now don't get me wrong, I know that Nolan had to make his own vision. I know this was a live action adaptation and not a straight comic book. But when you're so heavily influenced by Frank Miller and everything about the films just scream Year One, The Long Halloween, and The Dark Knight Returns, it just makes you wonder, well, why didn't you just get a green light to tell as verbatim as you could the stories of those three graphic novels? Now, there are different elements, of course. The Catwoman and Talia's story and The Dark Knight Rises mostly that are differences, though you would have missed out on some great performances and great character things if you hadn't made your own version. And in the end, that's why, as much of a problem as I have with them recreating such iconic stories, Nolan's direction and the fantastic acting in this trilogy, I've said it many, many times, Heath Ledger's Joker is, to me, the greatest cinematic performance of all time. And I know what blasphemy that is. I know what other performances I'm excluding by saying that. If there's ever a top 5, top 20, top 10 things of greatest performances of all time, those other great performances, Marlon Brando's stuff in the Godfather trilogies, Robert De Niro's performance as Cole Trickle in Taxi, all of that will get its just due. But to me, Heath Ledger's Joker is the greatest cinematic performance of all time. Does that make him the greatest Joker? That's a whole other debate. And yes, Ian, I haven't forgotten the Batman tag. It will be coming probably in 2 weeks. I've just been so busy with the holidays and other videos and other reviews I had to get up, but I will be doing the Batman tag. But the Joker thing is a whole other debate. But as far as cinematic performances and emotion, to me, the single greatest cinematic performance of all time is Heath Ledger's Joker. So you have all those elements to take into consideration, and that is the main reason that you have to give the Nolan verse its just due and call it one of the greatest trilogies of all time. So that is the Nolan Batman trilogy at number 5. Number 4, it is Disney's The Santa Claus trilogy. I debated back and forth between including this one or including the Toy Story trilogy, which I don't have, or including the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles original 90s film trilogy. But in the end, the Turtles are more of a franchise. Toy Story is unfortunately getting a 4th film, although after watching Toy Story The Time Forgot, if the writing continues from Toy Story A Time Forgot, maybe a 4th Toy Story film isn't that bad of an idea. I mean, the whole reason that they say they're making a 4th film is because this was a can't-miss story. So, in the end, this won out because, as you know, I love this trilogy. It's my favorite Christmas trilogy of all time. I think it's just Santa the way that every young man and woman over the course of their childhood pictures Santa. This is how we expect Santa to be if Santa was real, and the way that the whole becoming Santa is explained and created and makes the mythology make sense because there is more than one Santa. I just think that Disney did everything right with the Santa Claus trilogy. And if you haven't heard me talk about the Santa Claus trilogy enough, because you're a new subscriber, I reviewed them last year during 25 Days of Christmas, did a full review of each of the 3 films, and then this year for Christmas, when I got the Blu-ray upgrade, which is a fairly recent video that you will find, I reviewed this particular Blu-ray set. So you can hear me talk about this trilogy a lot more if you want to. It is the Santa Claus trilogy by Disney at number 4. At number 3, of course, what else could it be? Well, actually, I guess it could have been a number of things, but if you know me, it's going to be easy to figure the rest of this out. So, at number 3, it is the Lord of the Rings trilogy from Peter Jackson, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and the last Best Picture award winner at the Oscars that I thought was truly deserving and truly made me jump out of my seat metaphorically and scream like a little child in overjoyment and excitement. The Return of the King. What is there to say about these films, particularly these versions, the extended versions, which follow the books more closely and put in so much more of the material that we all grew up loving, having read the books as younglings. This is just cinematically, emotionally, and story-wise one of the greatest epic sagas ever told. And honestly, if it hadn't been for the nostalgic feel of growing up and the second trilogy making me a film buff, one of the things responsible for making me a film buff, and it hadn't been for number 1 being made in the first place, this would be the greatest trilogy of all time. I mean, you want to talk about what it means to be a film aficionado, and you want to talk about what cinema is in terms of an art form. You cannot get a bigger, better, more complete example than number 1, which we'll talk about here in a minute, of course, than the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The acting, the special effects, the CGI, which is actually good, the unbelievable acting, the engrossment in the world, and just everything. Every single bit of beauty. Of course, Andy Serkis is Gollum / Smeagol. Everything about this is just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And now, of course, we have The Hobbit as well to throw in this universe too. But this came first, and this will always be ahead of The Hobbit. So that is The Lord of the Rings at number 3. Number 2, great Scott, Marty. It's the Back to the Future trilogy. I mean, what more do I have to say than that? I mean, just one of the funniest trilogies of all time, one of the most quotable trilogies of all time. It's such a ludicrous and out there concept, and it really made me appreciate what an art form that acting really truly is, because of the simple fact that you had Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd, as I just said, have to deal with such a ludicrous, unbelievable, in every possible way concept that you're just amazed that they can make it work and make it enjoyable, and they do. Now, I know that people are iffy about the second one and the third one because originally the second and third one weren't supposed to be made. They just put that line at the end of the movie as a joke, and then Jennifer was recast, so they had to refilm the end of the first movie and all that. But really, when you watch this trilogy properly, and the proper way to watch any trilogy for anybody that doesn't know or just hasn't ever taken the time to do it. That's not a word, sorry. But for anybody that's never really just even taken the time to do it, the proper way to do it is to watch all three films back to back, because the majority of the time, as is the case here, you're going to get a story that's just basically one long story. The one exception to that rule, while it's there in a lot of ways, it's not there in a lot of ways because of all the different characters and all the different villains, and that's our number 5, the Nolan Batman universe. You can't really see that as one long story because of the villains and the different arcs and things like that. But yeah, when you watch Back to the Future back to back, which I would never watch Back to the Future since seeing it in the cinema originally years ago. I've never watched Back to the Future since without watching all three films back to back, because it really does create one long story. And yeah, did it make sense for a Western to be in this arc? Maybe not. But I actually enjoy Doc Brown getting a romance, which is ironically part of what most people don't like about the third film. I think it makes sense for him to get a romance because he was seen as the guy who was nowhere near normal. And I just like that aspect about him getting his just due, as it were, and both him and Marty being happy at the end. So I don't have a bit of a problem with the third film, and I just think it all really flows together. And as I said, it's part of what made me realize what a true art form that cinema is. And if it hadn't been for number 1 changing my life, changing everyone's life, and really defining modern cinema, this would have been number 1. But of course, at number 1, I can't show it on Blu-ray because it doesn't exist on Blu-ray yet. It's coming this year, thankfully, in proper presentation. But what else could I be talking about other than represented and overlaid by its logo right there on your screen? The original Star Wars trilogy, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and The Return of the Jedi. The single greatest story ever told, because it is one long story arc. And after watching the prequels, even though there's a lot of problems with the prequels, we clearly are defined now that it is the story of Anakin Skywalker, aka Darth Vader. It just defines everything that cinema can do power-wise. It defines how a cinema makes you escape into a world that shouldn't exist and makes you long for a world like that. It defines how your imagination can take control and be a good thing for a couple hours. It defines how, like I said about the second trilogy and Back to the Future, it defines how great actors and actresses can be when they take an unbelievable concept and make it believable. And it defined modern cinema. There wouldn't be no Lord of the Rings, there would be no Harry Potter, there would be no The Hunger Games, there would be no Tolkien verse told in a live action form on film without the success. There would not even be, I almost forgot to mention this, but there would not even be Star Trek revived and renewed on a bigger, higher budget scale without the original Star Wars trilogy. So that is why the uncut versions of the trilogy, the original 3, the back 6, whatever you want to call them, has to be the single greatest trilogy of all time. So I hope you all enjoyed this. I really enjoyed doing it. Next week is top 5 franchises. Oh boy, that's going to be hard to just stop at 5. and hard to narrow down. But I look forward to it. I'm not sure how Ian and James pick these from week to week. I might have to start PMing them on Facebook or Twitter or here so that I can maybe get in on picking one every once in a while. But these are going to be super fun to do, and I'm looking forward to doing them. So along with it, of course, being in the most recent episodes and videos playlist, there will be a brand new Top 5 Fridays playlist that is created. So if you missed one or you want to go back and watch them as time goes on, you of course can check out the playlist to do so. And as always, please subscribe if you're new here and you liked what you saw here today, because I would love to see you again. Thank you to my Patreon supporter, India Maiden. Your support is greatly appreciated. You can also check out Ian and James's videos each and every time they beat me to this, as they have done today, down below in the description box as well, if you missed them, to see their list. And as always, this is reality according to the Razman, and Razman style is not just a catchphrase, but a way of life.